You have a shard of reality, not a whole mirror. Smart people embrace this painful fact to find shortcuts in life. Consider this: Blue Lock is not about a cutthroat world, where only the best will survive, but about weirdos finding each other and vibing. Spy Family is not about a spy saving the world, but about weirdos finding each other and vibing. And One Piece is totally about weirdos finding each other and vibing. The moment Luffy inspired Kobe, I was hooked, and the length of the manga seemed like pro, not con. So why do we love this aspect so much? Because it is in human nature to desire to belong, and with prolonged exposure we start to associate with the group, it becoming a part of our identity. So an attack on another part of that group feels like an attack on us personally. Forgers and Straw Hats are ready to face the rest of the world for each other, which is a thing of beauty. We admire, even romanticize their conviction to overcome their limits for others' sake, to face injustice. Still, each coin has two sides. To feel better about ourselves, our mind plays a trick, saying that our group is better and the other groups are worse than it really is. This inner and outer group bias distorts reality, and at some point can become really toxic. Be it false superiority to feed the ego, or denying reality to avoid cognitive dissonance. That is, basically a paradox, hurting a person's brain, such as very enjoying the video, but not liking and subbing. How is it possible? Or, for example, just see what is happening with Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood fans, who constantly are downgrading other shows on my anime list. So FMA is number one on the list, at least for some of them, has the following logic. They believe that FMA is the best anime, but that belief is attacked by placement in the list. To solve the paradox, they tried to deny reality, fight with the outside environment, and sunk cost fallacy is making everything worse. Basically, the more you invest in something, the harder it is to admit that you are wrong, because otherwise it becomes harder to justify the done. Also, potential damage to ego increases.
Emotional damage!
Can you see the trap, which imprisons people in a certain mindset, and makes them so easily manipulated? Be it by politicians or cult leaders. Why do people even mindlessly double down, confronted with great arguments contradicting their belief? A much easier and freeing way is to address inner aspects of cognitive dissonance, such as one's own ego, by analyzing why really the stimulus creates such a visceral feeling, and if needed, then play the devil's advocate, in order to see from a different perspective, vastly reducing the inner and outer group distortion. For me, as a huge JoJo's fan, it was admitting to myself that Black Clover has much more enjoyable chess-like combat than JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, because Black Clover much better foreshadows and explains the outcome. Admitting to myself that I was wrong hit my ego.
Emotional damage!
But for me, a much more important is to find out the truth, and this ability to seek the truth, not to be proven right and stroke own ego, is what determines what type of argument it will be. Conversation, which develops involved, lets them have a wider perspective, not a fight, where each tries to hurt the other. Disagreement becoming an opportunity for growth, not a reason for a bloody fight. That is why associating with like-minded individuals, sharing common shards, in order to feel belonging, even safety, is nothing wrong. The problem starts when people forget about the bigger picture, and self-fulfilling prophecies can make it all worse. Basically, presumptions impact the result. For example, if you presume that the other person is narrow-minded, then you will subconsciously use a more confrontational tone, a different opinion consider as a narrow-minded attack, and so on. And it creates an aggressive environment, pushing the other person to act like a narrow-minded person would, such as being very defensive. But if I presume that the other person wishes to find the truth, then you will ask questions, which allows the other person to show additional insight. Also, the person does not feel constantly on the edge, so is much friendlier. The open mindset will not magically turn every troll into a great conversation partner, but will increase the chance to find one, therefore vastly increasing the ability to bond with people. Of course, also remember that each of us has different qualities, so one's paradise is another's hell. For example, introverts recharge by being alone, while extroverts interacting with other people. So talking all day with people will make extroverts energized and happy, while introverts will be exhausted and grumpy. That is why two totally opposite opinions about one and the same thing can be valid, and understanding the underlying conditions of why the valid opinions differ, underlying mechanisms of how the world functions, and taking advantage of them, such as finding shortcuts, and if necessary, then even changing the mechanisms, is worth the adventure, even if you need to overcome a hurt ego. Imagine how much time, effort and so on you can save, or how much easier can you connect with people. Still, because each of us has different qualities, it makes really difficult to give advices. Like in Blue Lock, each player has their own weapon. That is why the teacher can direct toward the answer, but ultimately it is up to the individual to figure out an approach which works for them. Making videos, I also try to use this advice by concentrating much more on showing the underlying truths, not going nitty-gritty, such as to be happy, you must learn unconditional self-love with cognitive behavioral therapy. As you see, the human brain is full of biases, that is, the mind's errors, and it is up to us to get rid of the programming bugs. What makes it extra difficult is that the tool we need to use for fixing is very flawed. We can ask for help from trusted and knowledgeable people, and they can help, but they cannot see it all, due to being flawed themselves. Luckily they usually are flawed in different ways. That is why you can see more and more shards of reality, making your shard bigger. Now you understand the initial statement. You have a shard of reality, not a whole mirror. Smart people embrace this painful fact to find shortcuts in life. But before you go to the wild west of the internet's depths to use the gained knowledge, get better in a training ground, such as the comment section of this video. I will be honored to see what you got. Also, there are many more tools, which will make your life easier.